Welcome back to Ill Eagle Culture Brands Red Tape Talk. I'm your host, John Ostos, a.k.a. Ill Eagle CEO, and I'm here with my two counterparts, Dion Two Cup Larry and Cody Big Meat Malk. And today we have another special guest on with us. I have a really cool intro I wrote for you, so I want to make sure I could get this off, Adam, and then you can tell me how bad it is afterwards. I'm excited to welcome an inspiring guest and longtime friend of mine to the podcast today, someone whose story is a powerful testament to transformation and hope. His name is Adam Martin. Adam's journey is nothing short of remarkable. He's the owner of several influential social media pages, but his path to where he is today was far from easy. From the young age of 13, Adam found himself in and out of courtrooms, facing a cycle of felonies, addiction, and despair. At one point, he was a familiar face on the most wanted list and struggled with the challenges of re-entering society after prison. From finding a job to securing a safe place to live, he was charged with 5 felonies, lost his children, and was gripped by a depression that made him believe he'd hit rock bottom more times than he could count. But one day, everything changed. Adam can point to a single magic moment, but can't point to a single magic moment, but his community never gave up on him. Today, he runs a nonprofit dedicated to helping other felons make the same change, offering hope, safe housing, and a path forward. Adam's story is not just one of redemption for himself, but also about giving back to the community that stood by him. His kids are back in his life. He works tirelessly to make his community a better place for everyone. Adam believes in the power of grace, but not just any grace. He believes in the power of ugly grace. And he's here to share his incredible story with us today. So, Adam, it's an honor to have you on the podcast as both a guest and longtime friend. Welcome, brother.
Thank you. Did you write that?
I did. Yeah.
You wrote that?
Yeah.
You should write all my shit.
Yeah. Well, I took it from something you wrote a long time ago about yourself. It was like a short bio I found, so I just kind of pieced it together.
Yeah, there seemed to have been some breadcrumbs there. I was like,
yeah. But it wasn't to date. It was like something you wrote a long time ago. So there was some stuff I had to like take out of it and try and make it relevant. Because
I thought maybe Chat AI did it.
I usually use Chat AI, but I know you in this case, so it felt better, you know? Usually I'll just throw something in there and say, go to work for me. Yeah.
Is that what you use for Cody's bio?
Yeah, I used Chat. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I have all the information, and then I have to put it in there and tell it to
still have
prompts.
to create the content.
Yeah, for sure.
What I did with my vows, I made them, and then I was like, make this better.
Yeah,
and that's it.
That's literally what you say too. Is like, hey, make this better for me, and then it makes it better, bro. It's so dope.
That's awesome.
That's so funny because that's what I put too.
Yeah,
make it better.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're so tech savvy.
Make it look like I have good vocabulary, please.
Yeah. Hell yeah, man. Well, it's good to have you on. I've wanted to have you on for a while, man. We've known each other for a really long time, and I've been through some of this with you when you had some of your struggles and your hard times with alcoholism and stuff like that. So I'm a huge fan of what you've done in the community. I support F5, in my businesses as well. And I just love to see what you're doing, man. It's cool and how far it's spreading out all over the place. So my hopes is just to kind of talk a little bit about that and kind of hear some of your story. So,
okay.
Let's start off here. I kind of want to talk about the ugly grace thing. I know it's a lot of people understand what ugly grace is who maybe understand, religion or faith and stuff like that, but for you in the way that you use it in your businesses and just kind of as your, I don't know if you call it your motto or your slogan, but ugly grace is something that you use a lot. I noticed through social media and when you're talking about the work that you do. So want to explain a little bit what ugly grace is to you and how you use it? Yeah,
I'll use a metaphor. Imagine getting pulled over by like a police officer, for speeding. And then he, comes up and checks your ID, and then, he's like, "You're free to go." Like a lot of people confuse that as grace. That's not grace. That's favor.
Yeah.
Right. Grace would be as if he got in the car in your spot, and then drove to the courthouse and turned himself in as if he was you. That's grace, right? And I think some people get kind of bent out of shape about using those two words together, ugly grace, because I think grace is, from a Jesus standpoint, the most beautiful thing that ever happened for the human race. Ugly is his walk.
Yeah.
That's ugly. Like bloody, ugly effort. What he had to go through to get to the real grace, the unmerited favor for all of the human race. And so what we call ugly grace at F5 is giving people unlimited chances right? It's putting ourselves in their shoes and how would we want to be approached? How would we want to be received? And then actually putting in that work to do it. It doesn't feel great. It's inconvenient. It's ugly. And but it turns out to be the most beautiful thing that's probably going to happen for that person.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I love that.
Yeah.
That was a really good explanation too. You were ready for that one.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. So tell us, F5, how many years have you been running this now?
It's been unofficially 8 years. So October was the very first jail meeting that we did.
Okay.
But we became a nonprofit in January 2017.
Got it.
Wow.
So I see a lot of your activity, but to get the full scope of things, like I really have no clue how big it is. I know that you've kind of taken it and spread to some other states and things like that too. And you do a lot just in the local community here. What is the scale of F5 right now?
Well, it's 2 companies now.
Okay.
It's F5 Project and then the Ridge Treatment and
That's
Reentry
right, okay.
Center. And so the Ridge has about 20 employees already. It's 2 years old. And then F5 has 50 employees, and we're in 8 regional locations, so all the big dots in North Dakota. And then we're also in Minnesota. And so of those places, we have 2 apartment buildings that we use for transitional purposes of people coming out of prison, and then 3 houses that will eventually turn into apartment buildings as well. That's the new play for us, is apartments. It's kind of like Monopoly. We started with houses, and then we're going to get apartments, and then one day it would be cool to have, hotels doing the work that we're doing. But most of that happened in 2018. We went from like 5 employees to like 35 in a year, and because we got some state contracts to pretty much do the work we were already doing. It wasn't really that much different,
Right.
and so they started paying us to do that work, and then we moved up to in our prime before layoffs and stuff. When we had those, we had about 70 people that were working at F5.
Whoa.
Damn.
So
you
we're down to 50 now.
You got a pretty good sized operation going there.
Yeah, it's about a 5 to 7 million operating budget, probably closer to 6. But yeah, if you would have asked me 8 years ago what we were going to do, I honestly thought I was just going to get asked to speak, and I was just going to be a speaker.
Yeah.
I'd go to jails and prisons and maybe some conferences and talk about grace and maybe write a book or something like that, and just be one of those guys.
Yeah.
Because it seemed easy. It was easy. It was easy to like maybe write a book about something that I think could change the world, and then just produce the book and not actually do any work. But I think God had different plans. I think he wanted me to put in the work first, so when that book does come, it's with real lived experience and not just some guy who's talking about what he thinks he knows he's talking about.
Yeah, I actually remember, God, it was like when I was first getting ready to open the gym, and you had come over to my place, and we were having a cigar in the back, I think by the fire or something, and we were just a couple of knuckleheads fantasizing about what the future looks like and what our endeavors were. And I remember you calling all these shots out, man, that you were going to one day do something to give back, and you wanted to help people change their lives, and you wanted to work on reform and stuff like that. And man, you followed those footsteps all the way.
Dude, you did the same thing though.
I did. Yeah,
it's
like we manifested it together, talking in the backyard over some cigars.
You're working at some travel agency or something.
Yeah.
Your desk was at home, and you were just like burnt out, dude.
Yeah,
and
man. I remember
like,
that.
I'm gonna do something different. I'm gonna do this franchise thing or whatever. Like, and now we're both on the other end of that, and it's just crazy how one cigar led to all of this.
Yeah, I mean, we had more than one cigar, I'm sure, over it. But yeah, it was cool, man. And it's so cool to see like what you're doing now, because you're really putting in the work, and you're really actually helping people. It's not just some, little jabs that you're taking at that vision or that dream that you had. You've done a lot for a lot of people in and out of prison. What is the basis of the work that F5 does, so people can really understand it?
Yeah, our goal is to build on the hierarchy of needs. So like make sure that people are fed, make sure they're housed, make sure that they have recovery is a big one, and make sure that they have employment. So a job, that's the 3 legs.
This is like when they're coming out?
Yeah, when they're coming out.
Okay.
But that's where that's where it was when we first started, was just people coming out of prison. Kind of like how Facebook was just for people who were in college or whatever. We've obviously expanded to, mental health and people coming out of treatment or homeless shelters as well. We did really good in the justice impacted kind of world. We expanded to, now we're doing really good with mental health and people who are homeless, and basically anybody can come knock on our door and ask for help, and we'll help them find recovery, we'll help them find employment, we'll help them find housing.
So do you? So people that are coming out, do you pick them up right away and take care of them, or I mean, if they don't have anywhere else to go, are you able to pick?
I mean,
them up
we
and
can.
okay.
Yeah, it's not something that we.
I don't know what
normally
I
do.
honestly I have no idea what the process is.
Yeah, they just get out of prison and they just show up. Like I mean, if they want a fast, like a quick activation to getting a job and getting a place to live and stuff, they just show up to the office. A lot of time we do jail meetings and prison meetings and stuff, so we go in frequently. So a lot of times we know when people are going to show up and we're ready for them.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any criteria? This might be a touchy subject, but is there any criteria of where you won't with
Where I won't
somebody?
help?
Like sexual offenders, things like that.
I don't think that God gave me that luxury.
Yeah.
I don't think I get that. My staff they can pick and choose. You know, I don't put the same expectations that I have for myself on other people. I think that creates resentment, and it creates an unfair expectation of other people, because I operate at such a level that I don't ask people what they went to prison for, you know, so it leaves the bias for me out of it. Yeah, there's, you know, would I want to work with a guy who molested a 4-year-old little girl when I have a 4-year-old little girl? Of course, that's gonna trigger some stuff in me, right?
Yep.
So I just choose not to ask, and so it could be. There's probably people that I've helped that have committed rape or sex crimes or murder, or you know, and I'd never know. I don't think, like I said, I don't think that God put that. He put a very high expectation on me when He gave me my life. And so I don't pick and choose who I work with.
It's fair.
Do you ever struggle, like, because you said you don't put the same expectations on others as you do yourself. Obviously, you want to push yourself in a lot of aspects in life, and do you ever catch yourself slipping, where you see yourself trying to, like, your expectations are so high for others that when they fail, it's very disappointing. Obviously, it's disappointing every time, but like where it actually irks you and it stays with you for a really long time, because obviously you're doing this for multiple people, not just
I think when I was more immature, I think with maturity comes a level of understanding that people are not going to operate at my level, and that, you know, people only talk shit about people who are above them. You know what I mean? So it's I'm not saying that I'm like looking around and it's like it's cold up here. You know what I mean? Like I'm up at this level. I'm just saying that that for me and my mental well-being, I just had to stop the shit. You know, I had to stop comparing the way that I felt to the way that people looked. You know, and because you'll always come up short, or people will never reach those expectations. So I think I just got to a point with like maturity as a human being and evolving as a human being, that I just stopped comparing and understand that people are going to operate at what level they feel comfortable at.
So Adam, with you being more towards the top now, are you still involved in the, you know, when people come in, are you still involved with them?
I try not to.
But you are.
I try. I mean, John probably knows this too. Like once you get to be like a CEO, like you just get in the way.
Yep.
You know, like, and so I hired people who are smarter than me and are better at a lot of things that I'm at. So when I say I operate at a level, I have to operate at that level, because I'm half as smart and I have to put in twice the work, right? You know, and so when I start meddling, you know, in stuff, it creates turmoil. Like people have their lanes. And so, or people like, you know, like entry level staff will like come and they'll knock on my door and they'll want to run something by me, or I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea. You should do that. And then their boss comes and like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like I told them no, and you're over here telling them yes. And so I've stopped, getting into the daily affairs, but I do always go into the lobby and I hang out in the lobby. for people who are coming in, and then make sure that they're getting really fast customer service, and that they're getting the things that they need to succeed. And so I'll just drop in every once in a while and just show that level of enthusiasm.
Sure.
That I'm jacked up and I'm ready to help you, and it just kind of breeds that with other people.
So when you were in the thick of it and you were helping all these people individually, did you ever get frustrated? Like if people would have a relapse or whatever?
No,
never.
No, because I have lived experience.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
I mean?
Like,
yeah,
you were able to figure it out, but have you ever run into?
Well, that's why it doesn't upset me, because of all the times that I relapsed,
Right.
all the times that I screwed up, all the time. You know what I mean? And I know that I never did it on purpose, or I never did it at people. It was a disease, and I was struggling with it. And sometimes I feel like I don't have a choice, and if I don't use, I'm going to off myself. You know what I mean? And so when people relapse, I'm like, man, I get it. I can't tell you how many times that alcohol or dope probably saved my life, you know, to giving me just a little bit of a relief, you know, to not do something that what I really wanted to do, you know. So no, it doesn't, you know, sometimes I'll probably be like, man, I just wish he would just get it, you know, but it's a fleeting thought, you know, at best. But I see there's a lot of people that they really take it to heart when someone fails, or they don't get it, or they relapse or something like that. And I've never really understood it, because I've relapsed so many times. I've seen people like that towards me, you know. But I've never really understood, like, if you're going to take credit for their failures, you know, or if you're going to take credit for their successes, you know, like, this guy is sober because of me. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So why are you taking credit for their failures? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Don't take there's no, every single person that I've helped that's sober today has nothing to do with me. They put in the work. You
know? The other thing is like, obviously, and this is everybody, but when people are dealing with addictions, especially, they can sometimes do things when they're desperate. That would be what I would consider taking advantage of kindness. Do you see that a lot? And does it like hurt your guys' business a lot, or are you guys able to bounce back from that kind of stuff pretty easily?
I guess, I mean, you can't really take advantage of the willing, you know, like, I'm willing to help you. And I knew you were, you know, that old motto, like, I knew you were a snake when I helped you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I know I'm going to get bit. I know it's going to be ugly. You know what I mean? But that's the level that we have to get to if we really want to make an impact. We got to be on the ground level, and it's got to be ugly, and it's got to be a lot of work, and it's going to be a long journey. And I've never viewed relapse as like relapse. I view it as just part of the journey. You know, I think sometimes society has this idea of perfection when it comes to recovery, and that if someone relapses, their journey starts over. I've never viewed it that way. I've always viewed it as I'm 11 years sober, but I've been in recovery for 25 years. You know what I mean? Like, I've been trying to be in recovery since 2000. I didn't get sober till 2013.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. It's crazy. So have you been keeping track, like, of how successful your guys' program is with these guys finding jobs and stuff?
I hate doing it. I hate numbers. It's like, we are the best. We are the best. We've helped over 40,000 people in the last 8 years, and we have a 75% success rate.
That's awesome.
My, thing is that I want to, my specialty is at 25% though, because I think that the numbers are actually better than what they say, because they base it off of somebody who went back to prison, right? What about the guys that went back to prison one more time and then got it? They don't account those numbers. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I would like to, I think our numbers are more along the lines of like 50% of them get it right away and they stay out of trouble. 25% probably got in trouble a couple more times, and then they pivoted and deterred from crime. I'd make the argument that we have a pretty close to like 95% success rate if you include all the people that got in trouble a couple more times. Eventually they're gonna, you know, 5% of dudes are really bad. 95% of people are just need a different environment.
Mm.
You know, there's definitely, there's opposites out there. There's really good heroes out there, and there's really good evil or really bad evildoers out there. And there's everything in between. Most of the people that we help are that 95%. And I think that our numbers would speak for themselves if we followed all the way through. I mean, it's impossible.
Do you think that if there was more people like you out there, we would have a lot less reoffenders across the country?
If there was a lot more people out there like me, it'd be really annoying. We only need a couple to go out there and speak from the hilltops and preach, and you know what I mean? Like, it would, if the work was easy, there would be a lot more people like me, but it's really hard work, and you know, sleepless nights, and trying to keep a business running, and then trying to get people sober, and then making sure you're at the jail meeting at the right time. Like, it's just, it feels like I live and die by my calendar, you know, and I don't know how many people out there are cut from the cloth. They would have to be in recovery. They would have to have lived experience. They had to have been through the course. Like, there's so much, like I have an 8th grade education. Like, I have a GED, you know, but my education of being in the courts and juvenile detention and being locked up and being, you know, addicted and all that stuff is probably a PhD. And that's what really put, you know, what I learned on the streets is what set me apart to be a CEO. And I feel as long as that person is that person at the helm of whatever organization, it will always stay true to what it's supposed to do. But as soon as someone who doesn't have that lived experience becomes that person, it will change. And so I don't think that answered your question. I kind of just went on a rabbit trail of my vision of F5 is that a felon will always sit in the CEO position.
So I have a memory of, like, me and you when we first met. I don't know if you mind I tell a story about some experiences with you, but when I first met Adam, it was through church. I was trying to find, you know, myself with God. I was going to a unique church at the time when we had first met, a church that said I wouldn't have known salvation until I learned how to speak in tongues. And so Adam kind of swooped in and saved me in that regard. I don't remember exactly how we met, if it was through Mike or if Mike came after, I can't recall. But I just remember we were brothers in Christ to start with. And he was kind of a mentor to me, him and Mike Heitland were. And so I never expected to see Adam in one of his backslides, so to speak, or, you know, him fall off. And I'll never forget, because I remember you I think you slept on my couch a few times to start with, and then you ended up in a hotel. And I remember you called me and you said, "Hey, I'm drinking right now and it's bad." And I don't remember the details of the conversation, but I somehow ended up at the hotel with him. And my ambitions at the time, I felt like, as a brother in Christ, like, I got to go help him. I got to be there for him. And I got to get this alcohol away from this guy and bring him back to my place or something. And we talked very briefly at the hotel. You let me in and we talked for a little bit. And the first thing you said to me is, "Do not try to take my fucking alcohol from me or it'll be bad."
I believe it.
And I remember thinking to myself, like, holy shit, he's dead serious. Like, this guy means, like, he's going to get pissed if I try. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to try. And I just tried to sway him with words and convince him, like, come on, bro, like, this isn't worth it. And none of it, to no avail, and none of it worked. And I ended up just saying, all right, bro, like, you call me if you need anything. And he's just like, just leave me here alone. And I'm just going to drink this alcohol. I'm probably going to pass out or something, and it'll be fine. And so I trusted in that would happen. I think things just got worse from there, to be quite honest. But I just remember how shocking it was to see you go that direction, because that wasn't the person that I understood you to be, but I didn't know you any other way until that point. And then you just really, like, crashed, man. Like, it just got really bad and things really started falling apart for you. And I tried to, like, maintain a friendship with you and invite you over and, you know, hang out a couple times. And it wasn't until I think you got a job at a company, High Point.
Yeah.
Was it High Point, to where you really started to get your feet under you again, and things started to change for you. And that was when we started really getting together and talking about what the future could look like. And you started manifesting all of this F5 stuff long before you knew it would be F5.
That's crazy. I don't remember that.
You don't?
At all.
Oh yeah, man, it was crazy. That's crazy that you don't remember that, though.
Yeah, I mean, I was wasted.
You were down there for sure.
Yeah,
and it was just such a shock to me, though, because like I said, we were going to men's groups together. We were studying the Bible. We were having Bible studies at my house with a big group of people from the church. I mean, and he was kind of leading the way. He was being a mentor to me at the time in my relationship with God. And so to see him have gone that direction was like super shocking to me. But then to have him threaten that there was going to be some bad shit happening if I tried to take his alcohol was like a whole nother level of seeing this guy. And I was just like, man, this is crazy. Yeah. Then I got to know that side of you more, and now I've seen the history of you and stuff. But it goes back even further, actually. In a weird way, we were already making connections long before we knew each other, because now fast forward to the future, we become friends. We get to know each other. He's talking about how he doesn't have his kids anymore and doesn't get to see them and whatnot. And then we had a conversation where we discovered who his kids were, and I realized years before that, his son and his son's mom lived downstairs from me when I lived in an apartment like up in North Fargo, and his son burnt down my garage. His son, like he was locked out of his house when he came home from school one day, and it was a troublesome household that he lived in at the time, and so like there was no one there, no adults or nothing, and so he couldn't get into his house, so he went and hung out in the garage, in his mom's garage, which was next door to mine because we were neighbors. And he got to playing with matches or something in the garage and started a little fire, and he was just like, oh shit, he bailed and just left the fire burning, bro. It burnt down his garage and my garage with all kinds of my shit in it. And I'll never forget that, because we discovered this one day. I was like, wait a minute, that's your son, that kid? And he was just like, yeah. I'm like, dude, he burnt down my fucking garage years ago. And he was just like, no way. So it was the funniest story of how we connected.
Such a small world moment. Yeah.
But you have all your kids in your life now.
Yeah,
they're all doing good. I saw Nick.
Yeah,
he's doing
really good. The one that
good.
burnt down his garage, he's just got engaged.
Got engaged. Awesome. Yeah, he's actually, I don't know, does he still do music?
Yeah,
kind of. Yeah, he's actually really good at music too. He found his groove. Like he tried to be like this hardcore rapper for a little while. He still like raps, but he found like his own element, and it just works for him. It's really good.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of talent. But your youngest son.
Yeah.
What is he doing now?
He's just being 16.
He's 16.
Yeah,
okay.
He's 16 years old. Got a girlfriend. Playing sports. Doing really good in school and stuff. And it's the crazy thing about my kid. Like, I got 4 kids. I got my oldest, who's 24, and then I got my 16-year-old. I have a 9-year-old kind of son that I help raise, whatever, but when his mom and I aren't together anymore. He's not like my biological, but I still count him as my son. And then my 4-year-old daughter. And I'll tell you what, man, boys are easy.
Yeah.
You just look at them and they'll stop doing what they're doing. You just put the fear of God in them.
You get there.
Dude, I wish.
It'll happen.
Oh my God.
But my daughter, oh my God, I just look at her and then she just like looks right back at me.
She'll look right through you.
She'll look right through me, and I'm like, I did something wrong. You know what I mean?
You're like, oh, sorry, I was mad at you.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened.
We'll see.
There.
I don't know. Ray is kind of the angel right now. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, wait till
they have to realize. You know what I mean? Like the son will realize like you and him have something in relation. Your daughter will realize she's daddy's girl and she can control
just
you.
Get away with
and then it's over from there, bro. It's over from there.
Yeah. So, but they're all doing good. My 4-year-old she's a handful. She's sassy. She very, very emotional. So I'm learning how to be an emotional dad. Like, I'm glad. I think that God's like, I keep referring back to him. I think he knows what he's doing, because he gave me the daughter last. Like, got me through like the lived experience of being a dad, with 3 boys first, and then sent the emotional one. And, like now I'm like all, it's soft hands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it, and I was seeing like, you see how you treat your boys versus your daughter, you know what I mean? Like I was really hard on my boys. Really hard. And I think it got to the point by the 3rd one where I was like getting softer and softer, that by the time it got to her, it was time. to have a daughter. And because if I would have, man, if she would have been my first, I would have been really hard. Probably would have rejected me, and all that stuff. And now I'm seeing how I have some regret with how hard I was on my boys, because I'm seeing how soft I am with her, and I'm getting the same results.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it makes me, and my boys, like, it's really hard for us to like all tell us each other we love each other, because we're such alphas.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm trying to like tear that down with my boys and just let them know that I care about them. I love them. And I walked up to my oldest son the other day, and I was like, just in case I don't get a chance to say it later, I just want to give you a hug and tell you how proud I am of you. And he's like, what's wrong? Are you dying? No, I just don't want to forget, because I'm feeling it right now that I'm really proud of you, and I just want to give you. And so lots of touching, you know what I mean? Like hand, like when my daughter, I run my hands through her hair, it's just a lot of human contact is what I'm trying to do with all my kids, and so that they feel loved. But
that's the thing, something they might not appreciate now, but
yeah,
in the future they'll think back, God, that's so
what
glad
they're gonna
he ended
remember
up saying that,
Yeah.
They'll think back to that moment just 2 days ago. It'll be 20 years from now. They'll be like, God, I remember when my dad said that.
Yeah.
It didn't mean much to me then, but it means a lot to me now that I think about it. So.
That's so true, because I just watched this documentary on Netflix with Vince McMahon, and he was talking about how his dad was such a hard ass pretty much his whole entire life, up until like towards the end when he was, right before he died, he finally told Vince that he loved him, and that was like such a big standout for him. It's like maybe he wouldn't have been such a creep if his dad told him he loved him.
I thought that was like a slander thing on Netflix.
Well, definitely, for sure. But it told the story about the whole entire the process of it. But yeah, of course he turned out to be a creep. But I'm curious, Adam, where did you grow up?
I was born in Breckenridge, Minnesota.
Okay, I wasn't from Wapton.
Oh, you're from Wap?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Enemies.
I'm sorry.
Adam's like, sorry, I stole your shit, bro.
How old are you?
35.
I'm 42. So.
Do you know Chris Olsen then?
I was there pretty young.
Were you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I left in 3rd grade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but prior to that, I was an Army brat. So my mom and dad, we lived all over the place.
Oh, sure.
So I'm not really from anywhere.
Was your parents together the whole time?
No. My dad left when I was 13, probably when I needed him the most, when I was a teenager. And so my mom raised me and my brother.
So that makes me really curious now. When did you first start getting into trouble when you were younger?
13.
13. So right when your dad took off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the rules left. Like my mom was, I was as big as my mom when I was 13. Is she gonna spank me?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she tried, and it was, so when my dad left, all the threat left of getting in trouble and stuff like that. So, and it probably would have happened inevitably anyways, because he was kind of a drunk. So, and we saw it all the time. He'd disappear for weeks at a time, and then come home, and then, sober up for a couple weeks, and then he'd go on a bender for 3 days and, be gone, So inevitably it was probably going to happen. It just happened. It just seemed coincidental. It was the same time that he left.
Wow.
So I probably would have been the same regardless if he was there or not. Probably just would have waited until I was a little bigger before I, went up against him.
Do you have contact with him at all?
No, he died. He died 12 years ago. So he died, and then I sobered up probably about 6-7 months later.
Wow. Yeah, I think we talk about it a lot on here, but the importance of father figure, in a child's life is very important, and especially nowadays with all of the social media and stuff, and how much mental health is kind of on the decline around here.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad, we just did a podcast the other day, and we were talking about our parents, and the question that we posed to ourselves was, if you could go back in time and talk to yourself, what would you tell yourself or whatever? And I honestly, I don't think there's anything. If I were to go back in time, I'd go talk to my mom and tell her that everything's going to be fine. Like, I know you can't see it right now. And I know, you think that you're raising, the devil himself, but know that it's going to all change, and it's going to be because of you, because you didn't leave, you know? And then Ricky asked me, he's like, well, what would you go back and tell to your dad? I was like, am I who I am right now? And then they're like, yeah. I was like, I'll whoop his ass. I can't tell you how many times I sat there, just wait till I get bigger.
Yeah.
And because, you know, he was very abusive. He was very traumatic. You know, he hit my mom. He raped my mom. You know, like he did a lot of, my mom's been through the ringer with my dad, you know. And it wasn't until the forgiveness for my dad came later when I realized I became him. You know, I didn't go to the lengths that he did, you know, like I've never raped anybody. I've never physically, you know, beat a woman or anything like that. But I might as well have.
You had the same kind of.
I had the same. I was the same. I was verbally abusive. I was a gaslighter. I was a manipulator, you know. And so there was a very thin line. The only real difference between me and my dad is he took it physical, you know. And honestly, like looking back, it would have been a lot easier to heal from physical wounds than it would have been some of the things that I've said, you know, to women, you know. And so when I realized that when I was drinking that I was just like him, that was what sobered me up, you know. So as much as I you know, say that I can't stand my dad, or even say that if I hate him or whatever, he's a big reason that I'm sober today. And it was because of all the shit that he did, you know.
So I know you said that you were on a journey of sober over 13 years, I think.
Yeah.
So what was it? The final, like, I gotta make this happen.
I don't know.
It just one day
day I snapped out of it.
Wow.
Yeah. There's no magic bullet. It's a lot of work. If I would have taken a lie detector test every time that I got sober and they asked me, are you going to stay sober? I would have said yes. It would have showed I was telling the truth. I meant it every time.
Yeah.
The only difference is what happened after I made the decision. It was the work and the effort that went along with it. I was willing to do anything at that time. And I made, you know, I know God's not really into deals. But you know, John could probably attest to it. Like I know the Bible, right? I know it. And it honestly kind of fucked me up because I knew more than other people. It put me in a position of power, and no one could penetrate this heart. No one could really call me on my shit. Nobody could do anything because I knew more than they did. You know what I mean? So I'd always flip it back on them as soon as someone was like trying to hold me accountable or whatever. And so the day that I got sober, I just made a deal. I was like, all right, I'm done trying to figure out who you are, and I'm just going to serve your kids. I'm going to be as maximum usefulness as I can to all your children. And if you reveal yourself to me in the meantime, that's great. But if you don't, I won't, like, I'm not going to be mad. And he hasn't revealed himself to him. And I haven't spent time, you know, trying to figure out who he is. I've just been trying to help as many people as I can on the way. And he's taking care of me the whole time.
So on the day that you became sober, did you feel anything differently?
No,
nothing.
It felt the same as all the 1,000 other times I tried.
Interesting.
So that's why I always tell people is like, if as long as you're struggling, it's working. You know what I mean? I mean, I would imagine you guys work out and you guys are all pretty buff.
He's talking about me too.
Yeah, but when you put up those initial weights, man, like compared to what you put up now, it took a lot of work to get to where you're at today. It's the same thing with starting a business, same thing with starting your life. You know, it's the same thing with trying to get your kids back. It's a lot of ugly, inconvenient work that needs to be done, and I was willing to do that for my recovery at that point. That's the only difference.
How long did it take for you to get your kids back?
Oh, it honestly, you know, Brecken's mom, she was also in recovery. And so she could see firsthand the things that I was doing. You know, she was at the same meeting. She was at the, you know, so she saw me showing up a lot more. So the turnaround on him was pretty quick. It was about 3 to 6 months, something like that. You know, and I'm super grateful for her because she pulled double duty for years and took care of Brecken. Brecken is good today because his mom showed up. You know, his mom and my mom are like identical to the things that she did for that boy, you know. And then I come in, and then I'm just like the fun dad, you know. Basically, at the end of the day, that's all I am, you know, or have been in the past with Brecken. It's just a fun dad. And so that was, you know, I'm really grateful for her, is basically what I'm saying. With Nick was 14 and he was in a closed adoption. So that one was a little harder. But then he hit me up on Facebook, and we've been hanging out ever since, you know. And then the other kids came after I got sober.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But it was weird when he messaged me. Like, so I was talking to Brecken's mom, and I said, "Hey, I found Nick on Facebook." And I don't know why I never thought it was actually his aunt said, or his adoptive mother. It was one of the two, said that Nick took off. He went home to live with his grandma, something like that. And they said, he's really looking forward to seeing you. He has a picture of you on his Facebook. And it never clicked with me before to even look for him on Facebook, mainly because he's so young. And I was just like, why a 14-year-old have Facebook? You know what I mean? And so I sent him a friend. Right before I did it, I talked to Brecken's mom, and I was like, it just feels weird. It feels like I'm being creepy. You know what I mean? Like, dad, yeah, I haven't seen my dad in years and years and years. And then he sends me a Facebook request. Like, and she's like, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have done it. You know? And she's like, basically, she's like, stop being a pussy. And I was like, man, you're right. And so I was like, I don't care what anybody thinks. And I just sent it. And then he sent me a message like 30 seconds later. And he was like, I never thought this day would come.
Oof, that gave me chills.
Yeah. He's like, I never thought this day would come. I never thought I was going to see you again. Wow. Yeah. And he, like a couple weekends later, came and stayed the weekend. And awesome. He's my, you know, he out of all, the oldest boy has been through the most. Foster care, adoption, you know, his mom's been to prison. I've been locked up. Like, if there's anyone that has an excuse, it's him. And he's living a good life.
On his terms, too.
On his terms.
Yeah.
He's got a job. They got a house. They got vehicles. They got dogs. They're like, it's like, if you met him, you'd be like, he is the nerdiest white guy you've ever met.
He's so cool.
And that dude can rap. Like, he can rap.
Yeah,
like, he's opening for guys and, you know, all that stuff. So, but I'm just saying that, like, the world is filled with excuses of bad behavior. And if anyone had the ability to use those excuses, it would be my son, and he's not using any of them. I'm really proud of him.
Wow.
That's dope.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So F5 project is based on your 5 felonies.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Are all of your felonies a result of your addiction?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yep. Every single one of my felonies were committed while I was under the influence.
Gotcha. And it's always just, was alcohol your drug?
Alcohol, meth, cocaine,
yeah.
You know. The only drug that I never got a chance to do was heroin. And I
never got a chance to?
I never got a chance. It was never in the room.
Got you.
With me. So it was, and it's a pretty rare, rarity to
back
like walk
then, especially.
To walk into a room and everyone's shooting up heroin, right? You see people, around here, you see a lot more people shooting up meth than you would anything else. You get down to Chicago, you know, kind of the inner cities and stuff, you'll see crack. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Heroin, I think out of all the people that I meet, maybe 1% are showing up because of heroin. Mm-hmm. A lot more fentanyl, meth, alcohol.
Yes.
So
I was wondering, because we just keep jumping around, and I personally don't know much about your kind of story, but we're touching all different, like when you're young, when it started, now. What's the in between? Like, can you give me a rundown of like from 13 to later on, or even earlier if you want to go? But I'd just like to hear, like, I'm sure when you go and speak in the jails and stuff, you have kind of your story that you tell.
Yeah.
Is there any way we could kind of get some of that?
Yeah, let's get that TED Talk.
That's kind of what I was like, I don't know what we're going to get
He's actually
into
done
today.
TED Talks too. Just so you know.
I have TEDx NDSU. I got invited to another one, but I can't tell anybody about it yet. It's going to be bomb.
Nice.
It's going to be
It's going to be in a location.
I can't tell you.
Yeah, that doesn't know.
We'll be expecting
They're still
tickets.
working on their licensing and stuff like that.
I was going to say we'd love to go for sure. That's,
and they told me specifically because I always break the news.
Yeah.
Like I'm always like bleeding edge breaking news. They're like, you absolutely cannot say anything. If you say anything, you're not going to get it. So.
Wow.
But it's going to be baller.
We'll make sure to watch out for that.
Yeah. The announcement will probably come in the next 30 days. And I almost screwed it up the other day because I was doing a Facebook Live with someone and I was like, oh man, I got something. Oh, that's right. I can't talk about it. But anyways, yeah. I mean, honestly, between 13 and 31, that's all the years I was drinking and using and committing felonies and breaking into cars and buildings and stuff. I mean, I've woke up in Nebraska at a bus station before. I've woke up in Alabama. I was trying to get to Mexico, because I had 5 felony warrants out for my arrest. So, I mean, there's really nothing glamorous about 13 to 31, except that, from 13 to 21 and 21 to 30, that's 2 decades of just chaos.
How did you survive?
Man, I'll tell you, there's times that I went into Hornbachers and stole food. There's times I've slept in the homeless shelters. Like, man, I think the real question you're asking me is how did I not off myself?
Yeah.
There was always hope that something could change everything. And it was in the final analysis that it was God. Final. I did everything I could. I tried using my kids as a reason. I tried using a new job. I tried to, every single reason that I tried to use to get sober or stay sober was fallible. And I needed something that was bigger. I mean, think about it. Like back in the day, alcohol was called spirits. I have this deep yearning for a spiritual connection, and I'm replacing it with alcohol. We call it this craving, this phenomenon of craving in alcoholics. I'm allergic to alcohol, right? And all that means is there's an abnormal reaction, right? When I drink milk, I'm lactose intolerant. That's an allergic reaction. Shit happens, no pun intended.
Yeah,
but
said literally.
My body reacts abnormally to it. My body reacts abnormally to alcohol because you can see people who can go out and just have a couple drinks and that's what alcohol is supposed to do. It's supposed to just kind of take the edge off a little bit, make you have fun, have a little bit more fun than you normally would. It's not supposed to make it to where you're going to drink for 3 days straight. But something happens when alcohol hits my body. It completely Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde,
I remember that
yeah.
very well.
I mean, you explained
Yes,
it. When you walked into that hotel room, I was a completely different person.
Yep.
When I'm not drinking and I'm seeking, right, my higher power, and I'm seeking that spiritual intelligence, John can see that I'm leading Bible studies and I'm leading, right, and I think that it's I don't know how far you guys believe in spiritual warfare, but I think that on this earth, the way that it is in the environment of sin and stuff that in this world, I'm supposed to drink. I'm supposed to be in the devil's playground of living a shitty life and watching my kids grow up without me and watching them from afar. And that is hell. Hell on earth for me is not being able to take my own life and having to sit in a spot and watch all the things that I was supposed to be a part of exist without me.
Damn.
That would have been hell. Watching my daughter grow up calling someone else dad. Watching my boys grow up and become men. And the thing that keeps me sober today, man, outside of God, is watching all those 50-year-old men that come to our office and them explaining to me all their regrets. I don't want to be on my deathbed full of regret. That's probably the number one motivator. It doesn't keep me sober, but it's the number one motivator. Is I don't want to be on my deathbed full of regret.
Not to make it a bragging point, but in the, like he's talking about the stage from 13 to 31, as you say, is there any particular event or story or felony that really stands out to you that was just a crazy, wild experience or story?
Yeah. Yeah. When I got my 5 felonies, I broke into like 3-4 buildings and like robbed them blind. I stole a U-Haul and was going to go sell all this. Like I broke into this building. I stole the copy machines and the laptops and money. I even stole the dilly bars out of the freezer. Man, I took everything and threw it in the back of this U-Haul, and I was going to go sell it on the black market, which is crazy because I didn't even know I don't know where the black market is a thing. It's not a place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And
You're like, I got the directions, I'm headed.
Yeah, I'm going to Minneapolis. And so I was, I intended I was going to go sell all this stuff and make money. And I made it to Detroit Lakes and blacked out, and I woke up in a hotel. And man, before I even opened my eyes, I could smell the cigarettes. I could smell the alcohol, and I knew I did it again. Right. I truly mean it when I'm a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. When the thing with me is that Dr. Jekyll longs to be Mr. Hyde without the consequences. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Hyde longs to be Dr. Jekyll, right? Like they act like they hate each other, but Dr. Jekyll doesn't have any consequences because he does nothing. You know what I mean? And then he drinks that serum and he becomes, Mr. Hyde, and there's so much consequence that comes with it, But the one thing that it does for him is it creates relief. It makes him believe that that's who he's supposed to be. You know what I mean? And because I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, I drive better when I'm drunk. No, you don't. You don't at all, but you feel like you do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I play blackjack better when I'm drunk. Well, yeah, because you have confidence. It may be false confidence, but it's the fear has been relieved of losing money. Yeah. So like I feel like I'm 10 feet tall and bulletproof when I drink. And I've gotten in more fights. My old motto used to be get drunk, get in a fight, and get laid. Like that was my motto back in the day. I loved fighting, especially big dudes like John, like because I looked victorious when I won. Not that I could beat John.
Yeah, that day would have been a bad day.
That would have been a bad day for me. I was also younger, and I was a lot more agile, and I was quick, and I was wiry, But anyways, I went on the run. This was the beginning of the end for me. Although it was a few more years before I got sober, but I went on the run, and I was going to Mexico. And I took a bus. I had my grandma pay for a bus ticket down to Alabama. I was going to, hustle up some money while I was there, and then I was going to get down to Mexico. That was the plan. And I was going to leave the country and never come back because I had 5 felony warrants out for my arrest. And I got down to Alabama, and I got on my I found out that you needed a passport to get back in the States. And so if I left, I was not being, in my head, I don't even know if this was true, but I convinced myself if I left, I could never come back. Okay. I had kids and I didn't know what to do. And what I mean by I didn't know what to do is like, if I go back and I'm in their life, I could probably ruin their lives. If I leave and never come back, I'm going to ruin their life. Like I was in a rock and a hard place. And so I got on my knees and I prayed and I said, God, give me a sign if I'm supposed to go back to Fargo, North Dakota, and I will turn myself in and I will do what's right. And a sign to me is like a burning bush, right? A neon sign, something. And I lay down in my bed and it felt like there was a bunch of crumbs in my bed. And I was like, what the hell's here? And all of a sudden I start getting these little pains all over my body. And in my bed was completely filled with fire ants.
Oh, God.
Completely filled.
What?
Yeah. And I was like, that's not the sign. That's a bullshit sign, right? Cleaned it all off, bleached the sheet. I mean, it took me like a couple hours to like get this all cleaned up. My grandma's all passed out in the other room, right? And so then I lay down, I go to bed. Nothing happened for the rest of the night. The next night I do the same thing. I lay down in the bed. It's completely covered in fire ants.
What?
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Okay. I was like, all right, God, I'll take that as the sign. The fire ants are the sign. I cleaned up everything, went to bed. Nothing happened for the rest of the night. That night, got on my knees, and I was like, all right, God, I'm not going to ask you. I know what I'm supposed to do. I appreciate you. Thank you. I look at my bed. There's nothing on it. I lay down. No fire ants.
Wow.
It was crazy.
That's wild.
And so from that day forward, there was always a little bit of hope that I was doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Even when I relapsed, I knew I was on the right path. And I had to just get to that point where I was willing to put in the work. It took a couple more relapses for me to get there. But I finally arrived at that point after one last night hurrah where a guy pulled a gun on me, and like it's a crazy story. But that final night, I always remembered the fire ants, that I'm in God's will. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing because he relieved me of the fire ants.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Are you able to tell that crazy story?
The gun story?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can. Do we have time?
Yeah,
We have as much time as you.
Oh, we
you
do?
have,
Oh,
basically.
okay. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, there's a whole story that goes with it about effort, right? Like where I started to realize that I was willing to put in more effort for alcohol than I was for my recovery, right? And so my last night I drank, a guy called me or messaged me on Facebook, and I had lost my job. I had an eviction notice. I had an eviction notice for an apartment that I wasn't even on the lease for. I was squatting, and they found out, and they told me I had 3 days to leave. Right. I lost my job. I can't talk to my kids. Everything's gone. I'm just basically drink to not off myself at this point. And my last friend, my very last person, the guy who drinks just like I do, hits me up and he's like, "Hey, do you want to come over and hang out tonight?" And I was like, "Yes, absolutely." I was like, "Do you have alcohol?" He's like, "Yeah, you know it." And so I was like, "Where do you live?" And he lives by the Tasty Freeze in Moorhead, right? And I live by the Bowler in South Fargo. And I was like, "Oh, can you come pick me up?" He's like, "I don't have a car." And I was like, "Well, how am I supposed to get there?" He's like, "Walk." And I was like, "Man, that's a long walk." Didn't even think twice about it. Like, I'm on my way, right? Took me 2.5 hours to walk to his place, right?
God, far walk.
Didn't complain, nothing, because there was a carrot at the end of that road.
Right.
I knew I was going to get fucked up.
Yeah.
Right. He passes out. I rob him. Right. I take his money. I grab his wallet. I try to hack his phone to get into his bank account and transfer money.
This is your friend.
This is my buddy.
Oh, Jesus.
Right. And I stole like a t-shirt or something, like put all this stuff in a backpack, grabbed the bottle, took the bottle with me, went home, took a cab because I had found some money, and got back to the house, and then just proceeded to get drunk for the rest of the night. Next day, I hear just a boom, boom, boom. And I was like, man, he called the cops on me, man. And I look through the people. I don't see anything. I open the door, and there he is with a gun to my head. He's like, "Give me my shit back. I'm not fucking around." And I was like, "All right, man. Like, we cool." Right? And I walk over, I grab the bag, and I see the bottle, and I push the bottle underneath the couch. And then grab the clothing and the money and stuff like that, put it in the bag and hand it to him. He starts rifling through it, and then he's like, "Where's the bottle?" I was like, "I don't have a bottle." He's like, "Where's the bottle, dude?" I was like, dude, I don't have a bottle. I did not take a bottle from you." And then he just like stared me up and down, put the gun away, and walked away. And so there's 2 points to this story. One, I didn't realize till later that I was willing to die for a bottle of alcohol. Mm-hmm. Like if he would have known for sure I was lying, I don't know what he would have done. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And then 2, which that's coming, is that the amount of effort that I was willing to put into drinking versus recovery, right? So that was the last night that I ever drank, right? Guns will do that.
Wow.
The next day, I want to get drunk, but I want to get sober, and so I walk down to a payphone, and I put 50 cents in it, and I called my friend Andre, and I asked him if he'd help me get sober. And he's like, "Yes, absolutely." I was like, "Will you come pick me up?" And he's like, "I don't have a car." Right. There's a very thin line between recovery and addiction. And I was like, well, where do you live? He's like, I live by the airport.
Holy
Right.
fuck.
And he's like, so if you want help, you got to walk to my house. And man, I got off the phone. I was like, man, this dude's a joke. Walk to his place. I started bitching and complaining and all that stuff. Right. And it was right at that moment where I realized what the problem was. That I was willing to put in more work for alcohol and dope than I was ever for my kids in my life. And it was at that. But if I would have taken a lie detector test, it would have told you I love my kids more than alcohol. But my actions said different. And it was that moment. That was a pivotal moment for me. So if you're going to ever ask, like that question you asked earlier, what was the moment? That was the moment. Was the realization that I was a piece of shit. I had hit bottom on how I viewed myself. Right. And when that happened, man, that walk got really easy. And it took me 2.5 hours exactly on the nuts, just like it did the night before, to walk to Andre's house. And when I got there and I realized I did it for my own recovery, everything's been a breeze since then.
Wow.
Everything in the last 11 years has been easy as shit. Because I feel like I'm that old proverb where I'm a man walking with a sword hanging by a thread above my head. And it could go at any time. And what that means for me is it could go anytime is I could either die or I could go back to drinking. And everything and I'm just not willing to do that. And so that's why everything got easy.
Damn. Going back to your dad, do you know if he was always into drinking, like for a long time, or
Yeah,
was there?
Yeah, he had a year of recovery. He went to meetings. He came to my games. It get me emotional thinking about it. Dads are very impactful, you know. And my dad, that year that he was sober, was more of a testament for me to get sober than anything else.
Yeah.
Because I know how much I loved my dad during that year.
Yeah.
He came to my football games. He came to my classes. He came to parent teacher conference. He was just a completely different person that whole year. And then his sponsor died. And nobody remembered his sobriety birthday when he hit a year sober. Nobody called him. Nobody congratulated him. I mean, at the end of the day, he was, you could make the argument he was doing it for everybody else, right, and not for himself. But what he did during that year was set the tone for who I wanted to be for the rest of my life. So the things that my dad did to my, to my family, like the unforgivable things, right? And that year of sobriety that my dad pulled off and became like the best dad in the world were very evident to me that who I'm supposed to be.
Do you believe that alcoholism is it hereditary?
No. Yes, maybe. I don't know where it comes from. I know it's evil. It's because I see it skip generations all the time. So if it was hereditary, that means that every single person would get it. And I don't think that my kids are alcoholics. And I hope that they continue to live the lives that they're living. But they know that if they ever go down that path, that they know where they can go.
Right.
But I just don't see it would have to. I mean, I developed alcoholism when I was like 13. You know what I mean? Wow. And my kids are 16 and 24, and neither one of them are felons. So it's that's a win, in my book. And I hope they continue to be like that. The one I'm worried about is my daughter, because she is more rambunctious. She'll walk over to other kids and tell them to cuss. You know what I mean? Like she's just, she's something else.
That's great.
So, I'm not worried. I don't want to predestine her,
Sure.
to be an alcoholic or anything like that. But if there was going to be one based off 4-year-old behavior,
or if it's hereditary,
or if it was
got
hereditary,
2 parents.
she got me. I mean, so did Nick.
Yeah,
and so
I
did,
suppose you're
so
right.
did
Yeah,
Brecken
Nick did.
too.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Martin Johnson bloodline or whatever to this little girl. We'll see.
So if you could snap your fingers right now and have anything you wanted for F5 project, what would it be?
Oh man, I wish I was a $20 million company and I could do more impact. Money creates change for sure. And I bet you we're barely making a dent in
For sure.
in the amount of people that need us. I wish I had more pawns.
Do you guys ever seek out certain individuals that, like, when you do go into the jails and prisons and talk to people, do you ever seek out certain individuals that, like, maybe say something to you and you know they're getting out in a few months and you try and reach out to them and say, hey, got a spot for you? Like, if you
I got a guy that I'm talking to right now. He's serving life. Lifers are they're a good gateway to get to the people, right? And get cred with people. The guy I'm talking to right now, I'm working with him to try and get him released because he is serving a life sentence for a nonviolent crime. He got caught with a lot of drugs. I don't know if Michael Gamboa, of the Gamboa family. Like if you did meth in the 90s and in the beginning of the millennium, or the early 2000s, there's a good chance that those drugs came from the Gamboas. Right, they were moving mad weight from Grand Forks, and he got caught. I'm pretty sure he got caught with 400 pounds of meth, and they made a statement when they locked him up.
When was that?
This would have been back 17 years ago.
Oh, yeah. 17 years ago. So like
he's been locked up for 17 years.
Early 2000s.
Yeah.
Is he? What? So you say Gamboa family? What is that? Is that Italian?
Yes, I think.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know.
Anytime you call him the last name in family, it's Italian, bro. It's
But he's connected, right?
Yeah, I'm sure he is. He's one of the smartest men I've ever met in my life. I mean, the guy built $1 million organization off of drugs in North Dakota.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, most people who get federally indicted, they get indicted with like 15 other people because you gotta piece all those drugs together to really make a federal case. Yep. He's the only guy that ever got charged by himself.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is?
Because of all the weight he had.
Huh.
He had 400 pounds of methamphetamines. There's not a single person in North Dakota who's probably had more than 30. You know,
that's
crazy.
That's a lot.
And so they gave him a life sentence. So he's serving life without parole for a non-violent drug crime.
But meanwhile, you can go and kill somebody in a vehicle and
get 20 years and be released.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so, but there's some stuff that happened during the Trump administration and the Biden administration when it came to like compassionate releases and stuff like that. And so it looks like he could get released. And I'm purposely like working with him because I want him to come work at F5. I want him to like that story of going from life without parole to being a peer support for people coming out of prison is like you can build around that. That's a player you can build a team around.
Talk about redemption.
Yeah.
That would be very impactful.
My hopes are is he gets released. And if he doesn't get released, I'm not gonna cease conversation. I really enjoy having conversations. Like he is literally one of the smartest men I've ever met in my life. And he's serving life in prison.
How does a guy like that end up in North Dakota?
Well, he grew up. I mean, his family were farmers, and he's from here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
But just imagine the wasted talent that we're locking him up for life. Like the guy was able to build a portfolio of business and organize millions of dollars worth of drug. Like imagine like if he would have been in the right environment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Yep. Like it's the same as me, man. Like when I was in that environment, the best I could do was be an addict and steal and lie and cheat and survive and right. You pull me out of that environment, you put me on this side, and I build a 50-person company. You know, I think that hustle will beat talent when talent doesn't hustle.
Yeah.
And that's why you see a lot of people who don't have college degrees as CEOs because they're willing to work harder and go farther and take that risk.
Is he in Bismarck State Pen? No,
he's in a federal prison in Indiana.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The same one. You know, you ever see that Captain Phillips movie?
Yeah.
With the ship or whatever. He's in the same prison as that Somali that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I only know that because I watched it the other day and it named the prison he was at. I was like, oh, Michael's in that.
Speaking of which, didn't you just visit San Quentin?
I did.
Yeah, how was
Dude,
that?
It was crazy.
Yeah?
I think San Quentin is becoming a reformed prison.
Really?
And And
Where's that again?
In California.
Okay.
It was.
Yeah, same.
It's been
Alcatraz,
rated.
right? Isn't it? Is that not Alcatraz? Oh no.
No.
I'm thinking of the wrong
Alcatraz.
prison. Yeah.
Alcatraz is Alcatraz. Yeah. But it's It's similar because it's right on the water.
Yeah.
Right. And actually, when they were building San Quentin, they had them staying on boats out in the water, just like if it would have been Alcatraz.
Yeah, that's
so
crazy.
there's a lot of history to San Quentin. San Quentin is the oldest state prison in America, right? And it is the most corrupt, and it's been the most violent, and it's been known. Like when you hear San Quentin, you've probably heard of San Quentin prison.
So when you mean corrupt by like
corrupt, man,
the COs like taking bribes
COs and gangs and I mean drug infested, like it was gladiator school. Like that was the prison. If you wanted to run shit and be a shot caller and whatever, that's the place you inspired to go, was San Quentin. Right now, I went there for a film festival.
No shit.
Yeah, and they have a media room in San Quentin where they have access to really good equipment, and they're making movies.
Wow.
Documentaries. One of the documentaries was Healing Through Hula, right? Like hula, you know.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of Hawaiians that are in San Quentin prison that are fighting toxic masculinity through hula and trauma and rehabilitation and helping each other and mentorship and stuff. And it's happening in San Quentin, you know. So Healing Through Hula is happening there. They're making documentaries about it. They were having formerly incarcerated people submit their movies, and they voted on them and stuff. Like
that
it was
cool.
Dude, it didn't feel like North Dakota is one of the most reformed prisons that we have in America, mainly because of the Norwegian model. They went there and toured it and viewed it, and they saw that if you treat people like humans, you're going to get better results than if you treat them like dogs. Right. And so we had to ask ourselves, like, are we punishing people because we want them to stop committing crime, or are we punishing them because we're angry? You know what I mean? You did something wrong. I don't like it. Now you're going to be punished.
Right.
Right. Or are our prisons supposed to be about rehabilitation, and when they're released, they're not going to want to commit crime? Well, how do we do that? We change the environments.
So how do you separate it for somebody that murders a child brutally?
How do I separate?
I mean, like, not you specifically. Yeah. I'm just saying in general. Like, I'm all for
reform and
rehab and all that stuff. But dude, when I watch some of these documentaries and of these people that kill kids, like, I want nothing else but to see that person cease to exist.
Yeah. I think the majority of people are on the same wavelength as you when it comes to that. I would also say that accounts for less than 1% of the prison population.
Sure.
And so it's kind of like, blanket statements, right? Like, you're going to judge all of Christianity because of one shitty Christian. It's the same mentality when it comes to reform.
Don't judge all Jews.
Are we going to stop reform because of 1% of the prison population?
Sure.
So by chance that guy gets to also participate in it. Yeah. I mean, you got to crack a few eggs and make an omelet.
Sure.
You know, it sucks that there's somebody who's reaping the benefits of all the reform that might have done something like that. But chances are you're never going to know, and they're never going to be released.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
fair point.
If anything, we want him to experience that change too, because he's going to be a lifer and he's going to be very influential to the people that are in the prison. And if we can change him, we can change anybody.
Fair point. It's fair.
So before we come to an end here, I want to talk a little bit more about between F5 Project and The Ridge. What is I guess, the difference between the two of them in terms of what you guys do for people?
Yeah,
How
so
do they
they're
differ?
completely separate companies.
Okay.
One's a for-profit, one's a nonprofit.
Okay.
One is a treatment center, and it has doctors and nurse psychiatrists and social worker, or not
Wow.
social workers, but licensed addiction counselors. And we run treatment groups like intensive outpatient. We have an inpatient where it's a 16-bed facility. So the Ridge it's a treatment center.
Got it.
With licensed professionals.
And this is all local to Fargo.
It's all local
Okay.
to Fargo. And then F5 is non-licensed, and it's peer support, and it's the missing link to from when people are in treatment to when they're on the street and where that transition between.
Okay.
So Jackie knew when if she was going to build a treatment center, to get the best results, she was going to need peer supports that all worked at F5. And so we started up the walk-in clinic, and we started up the Ridge inside F5 in the building. And now they just recently, 2 weeks ago, moved to their own site because they outgrew our
Nice.
spot. So now they're right across the street from us.
That's awesome. So you guys are really just getting all spectrums of
Yeah.
people who need the help, reform everything, and you're just covering all the bases.
Yeah, the idea is that I wanted the whole map.
Yeah.
Like I want to be responsible for the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so the idea came from, there's a hotel for $29.99, one for $39.99, one for $49.99. What the people don't know is the same guy owns all three.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what we want to do.
Nice. You mentioned something earlier too about writing a book of some sort that you would one day find that purpose. You are writing a book right
I
now,
am
are you
writing a
not?
book.
Okay.
I'm writing a series of books, so I'm going to keep them short and inexpensive, so that way people can buy 2 of them and send one to a guy in prison, and then keep
Nice.
one for themselves. Kind of
That's awesome.
the Tom Shoes
Sure.
methodology.
What's the premise of the book?
The first book is going to be, it's 5 chapters, and it's just it's stories like tonight. It's just going to be what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And it's called Ugly Grace. And it's going to be, and I'm just going to write, I probably have, if I were to sit down and just really write for the next couple of years, I could probably fill 30 chapters, 40 chapters of these stories. But instead, I'm just going to write multiple books and then produce them 5 chapters at a time.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Right on, man. So go ahead.
I got one more good one that I feel like, so since you are, I don't know, however you consider it, an addict, or I would say you're an addict in recovery. Did you experience a lot of, or did you have a lot of friends who were also addicts? And did you ever experience any hard, difficult deaths from people who had addictions other than obviously your father and stuff like that?
Yeah, quite a few actually. Fentanyl is a terrible drug, and it will kill people the first time they do it. The other night I was in the jail, and I had everyone. There was 60 guys in the meeting that came from the pods, and I asked them to raise their hand if they knew someone who overdosed and died from fentanyl or drugs, and all but 6 of them raised their hands.
Jesus.
It is an epidemic of I think nationally we're losing like a city of Fargo every year when it comes to overdose deaths.
You remember my cousin Raymond, I used to talk to you about, really big into theology, struggled with spiritual warfare more than anyone I've ever known. That's how he ended up passing away, was from fentanyl. And he told me a few nights before that he was going to do it, and that the devil was the one who told him to go pick it up and take it home and do a whole 8-ball.
Yep.
And he swore he couldn't beat this demon. I remember being New Year's Eve on the phone with him. I was having a New Year's party at my warehouse studio up north, and I was on the phone with him for hours, bro. He was crying, he was driving. He kept going through these weird demonic changes in his voice and his eyes, the look in his face. It was crazy. And I just remember trying to talk him out of it for so long, and it just got really late. And he was just like, I'm just going to go in and lay down, and hopefully I don't touch this. I'll do whatever I can. And I tried to reach out to like his mom and other people, to no avail. Well, nothing happened that night. He ended up being fine. And that's when I reached out to you and was like, hey, I want to bring my cousin here. And he said he'll move here, and I want to hook him up with F5 somehow, but he needs to get a job. He's a machinist. And you were like, just get me his resume. I reached back out to him for his resume and got no response from him that day. A few hours later, another cousin of mine called me and said, hey, Raymond's dead. I was like, what do you mean he's dead? He's like, he OD'd on fentanyl. They found him in his apartment by the doorway with his hand reaching out towards the door. So the visuals that I get of what happened at that moment when he realized, oh shit, I'm going.
Yeah.
And he tried to make a run for the door where he can get to where someone was. I don't know. It's all stuff I play in my head. But yeah, it was fentanyl that took him, and he knew it was fentanyl. Yeah. He knew he was just like, heroin's not enough anymore. Yeah. It was crazy. It's the craziest thing I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fentanyl will...
It's bad.
Everybody.
Yeah, it's bad.
Taking out everybody.
Hey, do you think that with a lot of people that struggle with drugs, alcohol, deal with it with some sort of trauma in their past? Like they have some sort of...
I think trauma is a gateway drug.
PTSD or whatnot.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Do you feel like we'll be somewhere at a point in society where we can use psychedelics to compete against the trauma like that?
There's been some really good research on it.
Yeah,
I would say probably up
and
until...
I'm not talking about like, hey, just go do it on your buddy's drug or couch. I'm saying like administered through a doctor.
Like a doctor. Yeah. If you would have asked me 5 years ago, I would have told you that I'm a complete abstinence guy. Drugs are drugs, and addicts will seek to. And I do think that when they do research, they're not researching on addicts.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So they're researching on people who may not have abnormal reactions to drugs or alcohol. With that said, I do like the research that I'm seeing, and I'm not anti psychedelics. I'm not anti marijuana. I'm not anti. I'm anti people who shouldn't be using them.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But I know plenty of guys who had terrible drinking problems, but they can smoke weed. And I know plenty of people who had terrible meth problems, and they can drink normal. You know what I mean? So everybody's journey is different, and it's really up to the person to be honest with themselves, and hold themselves accountable on which pathway they're going to take.
Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts of veterans that had severe PTSD of going on and doing these spiritual trips. And then we had somebody at the gym that told me about his experience, and the way that he described it was like he told me that like he had this he was like astral projected himself, though he was watching himself, but he said that there was like this black sludge that was coming out of his head. Yeah. And he said after that experience, he felt 10 times better.
Yeah, we do ketamine treatments.
It was ketamine. It was ketamine.
Yeah, we do ketamine treatments at the Ridge, and when Jackie first told me about it, I was like, this is crazy. We're like basically getting people high, right? Like, because I was ignorant of what it really is, but I couldn't argue with the results.
Yeah.
And the people that I was meeting, when they walked in there and then 6 weeks later they were walking out, they were completely different people. They were confident, and they were overcoming traumas that they never were able to overcome before. And so, it's not only the research I'm reading, I'm actually seeing the results in our own clinic.
I hope to someday that especially veterans will get access to that more frequently.
Yeah. Like for free.
Yeah.
Yep.
Especially for veterans.
Yeah.
Do you follow like a 12-step program, or do you guys promote that in F5 or anything like that, or you guys kind of just use?
We promote all pathways. Yeah, I'm a big fan of all pathways. If it works for you, it works for you. I went the 12-step route and did that. And probably up until recently, it was like pretty much predominantly in my life. But now with, the one thing that recovery does for you is it gives you a bunch of things that end up being the same things that take you away from recovery. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I used to go to a lot of meetings. I used to sponsor a lot of guys, and then I started businesses, and then I had a bunch of kids, and you know what I mean? And so all the gifts end up becoming the pains of taking you away from the things that you did when you got sober. So.
Oh yeah. Well, that's all I got, John.
Cool. I was just before we close out, I want to make sure that we touch on a couple of things for you. I know you have your opportunity gala coming up soon. Can you tell us a little bit just kind of what that is?
It's our yearly fundraiser. Mm-hmm. It's a chance to tell donors thank you. It's a chance to bring the staff together. This year we have a musical talent. Dakota Faye is going to come and do music for us. And then Christy, my daughter's mom, is our keynote speaker.
Oh, nice.
Yep. And so she's got a great story of redemption. Her kid, she lost, 6 of her kids to they were terminated, they were taken from her by the state. And then she had another kid, and they came and took that kid. She's been to prison 2 times. She's got a great story. And she's gonna light it up. So that's on November 14th. Tickets are $125. Tables are $1,000, but you get 8 tickets with it. And we're looking to fill those seats. So
nice. And where can people find
F5project.org?
Sweet.
Everything you need to know is on that website.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you coming on to the show, Adam.
Yeah,
in closing, man, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Okay.
But if there's anybody watching this or comes across it at any point in time who's battling with addiction or anything of the sorts where you come into play, what's a message you would want to give to them of encouragement or to make that next move in the right direction?
Yeah. Don't give up. Don't give up hope. As long as there's a flicker of hope, it can fan to flame. And just no matter how many times you get drunk, no matter how many times you think about taking your own life, don't give up. And one day it will happen. Just keep seeking.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Right on, brother. Well, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate you being here. I love your story. I love the redemption in your story. It's a great thing what you're doing to not just our community, but for the people all over the place and what you're getting your hands into and the way that you speak about it. So keep it up. I'm proud of you as a brother, man. I think it's amazing what you've done. So thanks for coming on to our show. We really appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, share the podcast, tell your friends about us. Don't tell your friends about us. Talk good, talk bad. Doesn't really matter as long as you're talking about us. Peace.